That should be it. So hello, everyone. Welcome to the day 5 of the training workshop, Digital Tools for the Epigraphist. Today's session, today's morning session will be dedicated to first copyright, an important topic for all of us. And later on, we'll learn something about the use of Zotero and Zenodo and practice a little bit. So our first lecturer is our guest, Milica Ševkušić from the Institute, from Technical Institute of Serbian Academy of Sciences and Arts. And she's, this announcement could take very long time because she has many different roles and responsibilities. One of them is chief coordinator of the institutional repository of the Serbian Academy, and also she's expert in library science, as well as very experienced in all sorts of digital projects and one of the pillars of open science community in Serbia. So, Milica, thank you very much for joining us today. I think you can start if you wish.
Yes, thank you. First, I will share the link to my presentation because it's publicly available. Then I will share my screen. And I have to tell you that, as Dragana announced this, that I have a personal note to make because I've known Dragana for ages. And I remember it was 15, 16 years ago, when we first met, she was dreaming about encoding the inscriptions, the Roman inscriptions in XML, and we discussed this topic then, and none of us knew much about this at that time. And personally, it's my huge pleasure to be part of such a workshop that is actually, I can see it as a kind of her dream coming true. So it's a really emotionally and personally, it's an important event for me. I'll share my presentation in the chat. I also I'm sharing the QR code. You can reuse it. And the first disclaimer I have to make is that I'm not really an expert on open science. I deal with practical aspects of open licenses and copyright. So I'm not a legal expert, and all I know is from the perspective of a librarian, research librarian, supporting researchers in their work, in dealing with publishers, in sharing their works, data and publications through repositories, and in the process of the implementation of open science. So that's my expertise, and I know these practical aspects. As for legal advice, I could probably provide some basic legal advice, but for some tricky issues, I wouldn't be able to do this. So I'm not sure whether I'm in full screen and you can see it properly or not. No? Yes, it's okay. So I won't probably be able to see your hands raised, but please do interrupt if you have questions. So we are quite flexible with this presentation, and the aim is to explain stuff and not just for me to present what I know to tell you. So if I don't see your hand raised, Dragana, please just turn on your mic and interrupt me with any questions. That's the main purpose, to discuss this, and yeah, not to be just me talking. Basically, I will start with some definitions of related to copyright, and actually the first definition is the definition of the intellectual property rights. We are usually using the term copyright when speaking in English, which is not entirely it's not very inclusive, and it has quite a limited definition. So if we talk about the creations of human minds, then the right term to use is the intellectual property rights. So these are the rights that are related. This is the definition from the World Intellectual Property Organization. So these are the creations of human minds, and usually it's the author, the person the creator of these works. This could be various types of works, text, artworks, multimedia, all sorts of media. So once they are created and once they are made public, the owner, the original owner of the rights to use these works is their author. So this is something that is very important, and this is something that is too easily forgotten, for example, in scholarly publishing, where people erroneously assume that the publisher is automatically the copyright rights owner. So it's not so. So if you create a work and you publish it, it can be a book, but it can also be something published on the internet. It's basically your work, and you decide how this work can be used. So you own all the rights, you own the exclusive rights, and you can give some rights to the others. You can retain all the rights for yourself. You can sell these rights, a part of these rights. I'll show it later. And basically, basically intellectual property rights includes copyrights and rights related to copyright, sometimes also called neighboring rights, and industrial property. So we won't be dealing with industrial property. It's much more complicated. These are patents, it's brands, etc. So we won't be talking about this because this is really not that relevant to your work and to what you need in dealing with digital humanities topics. So copyright is actually one segment of intellectual property rights, and these are it applies to literary or artistic works. So that can be books, this can be other types of writing, that can be musical compositions, painting, sculpture, architecture, and computer programs. Interestingly, for example, for me, it would be probably more logical for computer programs for code to belong to industrial property, but it's not. So it belongs to copyright, films, etc. And usually they are protected. They are protected for a certain period of time. So this period of time differs. It is at least 50 years. In some cases, it is 25 years. In our countries, it's about 70 years. In some countries, it's 100 years for some works. So it depends. It is defined by national legislation. And basically, throughout this period, the copyright holder owns the rights, can use this, can license, can sell, whatever, can earn money using this work. And then after the expiration of this period, 70 years after the author's death, so persons, people who inherit the author's property, other properties, they can also inherit copyrights. So after the death of the author, this work goes into the public domain. And you can see usually in January, you can find news saying, well, this year, these and these films, these and these compositions, these and these books will become, will go into the public domain. And thanks to this, to these regulations, we have, for example, books that are in public domain, and anybody can publish these books and republish these books, reprint them, or publish them on the internet. But in case, for example, these books are translated, translations are also copyrighted. It depends whether the translation may not always be it may not always be possible to share, to reuse, to reprint the translation, because the author of the translation also has some rights, and so you can republish a translation 70 years after the death of the translator. So these are regulations that are usually embedded in national legislation, national laws relating to copyright. So we also have related or neighboring rights. and these are the rights of performers, for example, actors, singers, musicians, for example, performing somebody else's work. They also, their work, their creations, interpretations are protected by copyright as well. And another term that is very important to understand is the term license. So license is a permission to use a work in a particular way. It can be exclusive, it can be non-exclusive, and the copyright holder can give license to use to other people. So the original copyright holder is the author, and the author can license the work to somebody else. For example, an author of a book can give a license to a publisher to translate and publish the translation of their book, and this can be forever. It can be an exclusive license, so this publisher can publish this translation forever. And or this can be non-exclusive and can be time limited. So this is usually regulated by agreements, license agreements between copyright holders and the users of the license. Basically, what you usually do when you publish with international publishers, commercial publishers, you usually give an exclusive license because they require you to do this. And by giving this exclusive license, you actually give them the right to use, and you sign this. Most people don't even read carefully these agreements, but you basically sign off all your rights and give them the right to exploit your work until the end of the copyright term, which means that you deprive yourself of the right to use it and of the right to license the work to somebody else. So this is the meaning of exclusive license. You give rights to somebody else, and nobody else can use it, and you are included in that nobody crowd. Some more definitions and more clarifications. So there are differences between national laws, between legislative traditions. And for example, there are two major, I should say, this is hugely simplified. So there are two major traditions. One is Anglo-Saxon and the other is European, they call it continental. I don't know, don't ask me about other countries. There are different traditions in other countries, depending on their local legislative tradition, on whose colony they were back in history. So there are many different traditions, but basically these are the most common ones and the ones that you most frequently encounter. So there is difference. We usually say copyright, and it's right to say copyright, to use the term copyright as a general overarching term. But basically, in most European countries, and it is so in our countries as well, we have the term author's rights. So we don't really use copyright when literally translated. It means the right to copy, to make copies, the right to use the content by making copies. And in our countries, it's author's rights. It's the right that is owned by authors. And actually, these terms and these traditions, they have in the background, they have completely different logic and different philosophy. So copyright is basically copyright. The origins of copyright are related to the emergence of the printing press. So when the printing press became reality, and there were many publishers, printers who actually made mechanical copies of literary works. Copyright legislation was introduced to protect their rights. So basically, copyright focuses mostly on those who invest in intellectual property, producers. For example, in the US, the producer is the copyright holder for a film, whereas in Europe, in most European countries, the director, the creator of the work is the copyright holder. So this is the basic difference. Basically, authors' rights in the continental tradition, they are related to human rights. They fall into the category of human rights. So your right to be signed, to be credited, to be cited as the author of a work is a human right. And basically in this tradition, a continental tradition, you usually have a division into moral and economic rights, which is, I really like this division. This division means that you can't you can't assign moral rights to anybody else. So you can sell your economic rights. You can give an exclusive license. You can completely transfer the economic rights and entitle a publisher to exploit your work, and you have no money out of it. You don't even, you have to ask to use your work, but you cannot be deprived of your moral rights. You will always have, they always have to credit you as an author. And even if, for example, an author dies and somebody inherits copyrights, they actually inherit economic rights. They are not signed as authors of this. The moral rights always remain with the original author. So this is typical of continental legislation. On the other hand, in the Anglo-Saxon tradition, moral rights are less important, and sometimes they are not even mentioned in the law. They are not. They don't even exist in legislation, which is different. Another difference, and this is something that is. That is where the people usually confuse these things, and you can hear, for example, people in European countries saying, "I'm using this and this video under the terms of fair use." So this is not correct, because in continental legislation, fair dealing and fair use don't exist. Fair dealing is actually the use of copyrighted materials for a limited scope of purposes. So, for example, if you need it for research, for private study, for education, if you want for satire, you want to, I don't know, criticize it in a comic way or a serious way, or for example, you want to make a review of a work, and then you need to quote some pieces of the text, then you can, in news reporting, etc. So this falls under fair dealing, and this is embedded in their legislation. So the legislation specifies that there is this clause, fair dealing clause, and you can use it. There is another in various, so in Anglo-Saxon countries there are differences between them also. So in some countries you have fair dealing, in some countries you have fair use. Fair use is very similar to fair dealing, but it's broader. And there are many litigations relating to fair use, because it's quite extensive, and it depends on interpretation. So these are very interesting court proceedings where they discuss whether something is fair use or not. It's really interesting. So in continental legislation, we don't really have this. So it's not okay to say, so this is fair use, because it's you don't have a legal right to use something under fair use, because it doesn't exist in your legislation. We have copyright exceptions, and they are more limited, and they are defined in the legislation. So they're not that extensive as fair use, and they are also limited to temporary acts of reproduction, quotation, teaching, research, etc., private copies. And what is most important, these are accessible formats for disabled people. So this is something that libraries have to deal with, and they have many issues. And there is ongoing struggle because commercial publishers, they strive to limit the ways you can use a particular work. So, for example, if you want to make a digital book accessible to people who are visually impaired, you will probably have some issues. There is now an international treaty dealing with this, seeking to enable libraries to make these books accessible, but there is an ongoing struggle. Not every countries have accepted this, and publishers are trying to undermine these efforts. So it's a very serious concern. and it's yeah, it falls also into the remit of human rights, but this can also be an exception, and from country to country these exceptions are different. So yeah, there is a kind of a minimum that all of them have, but some countries may have a more extensive list of exceptions, and the other countries have more limited. And also there is a difference relating to something that is called work for hire. This is where you, for example, you're, as we all of us are, we are employed with a public organization or a private company. And in the US especially, and in other Anglo-Saxon, not all Anglo-Saxon countries, but in US especially, so if you work for an employer, the copyright will automatically belong to the employer. And this will be for the entire duration of copyright. So this means 70 years after your death. In continental legislation, not all countries, this clause doesn't exist in each country. For example, I'm not sure whether it exists in French legislation, but for example, in Serbia, it does exist, and work for hire is limited, temporarily limited. So for example, in Serbian law, if you're employed and you create something, it's in your job description to have some creative outputs. These creative outputs will belong to you as an author in terms that you will have moral rights immediately. You will be credited as an author, but for the first 5 years, your employer will have the exclusive right to use the work. And then after the expiration of this period of 5 years, then all the rights, the economic rights, also return to you as a creator. And that's very important. Actually, many people don't really know this. So so if it's not, this can be defined differently. For example, in the US, this can be defined differently by agreements between employees and employers, and this can also be defined differently in our countries. But basically, if it's not defined differently in using by means of an agreement, then it's basically the law automatically applies. So you have this right after this period. So check your copyright law. After the expiration of this period, you will be able to fully exploit your copyrights. So this is very practical information, and I usually explain this because people don't really understand when they find these notices. For some reason, I don't know, they are not really clear. So when you find copyright information, it has two main parts. So you usually see this copyright, then you see a year when the work is copyrighted. It might be the year when it was created, but it may be a different year. Then you have the name of the copyright holder, and after that you have usage rights, usage conditions, terms of use actually. So, but also this is in this first case. So this says that this work was copyrighted in, this is a journal article, by the way. So this work was copyrighted in 1985. The copyright holder is Springer, the publisher, and all rights are reserved. When all rights are reserved, this means that you can't use this work without asking permission from the publisher. For example, you want to actually, for example, translate this article. You can't do this because this license doesn't allow this. You want to deposit this work in a repository and make it open access, which means disseminate it further. You can't do this without asking permission from the copyright holder. In this case, copyright holder is the publisher. And the publisher is the copyright holder because the original author, the authors of the manuscript, they signed an agreement by means of which they actually gave away their rights to the publisher, and they don't have the rights anymore. They are credited, they retain their moral rights, but the publisher is if you want to ask for permission to use this work, you have to ask the publisher, who is the copyright holder. Basically, if you see just the first part, copyright, or you don't see anything, so for example, you have a website and there is no copyright notice, it is implied that all rights are reserved. So this is important to highlight, because in our region, we we lack the copyright culture, because for many reasons. There is a kind of, it's not a legislative tradition, but it's a cultural tradition, I should say. So when we find something on the internet, we usually wrongly imply that this can be reused, but it cannot be reused. So if in order to make things, and we will explain this later, in order to enable people to use your work, you have to put a license on it. You have to allow them to use. So our logic is usually, so it's not forbidden, it's allowed as long as it's not forbidden. But in terms of copyright, this is not a right logic. It's just the opposite. So if the rights are not given explicitly, it's implied that they are not given, that you don't have any rights and that you have to ask permission. There is another case. So this is the second copyright notice is for work that is published in open access. So you have this copyright, then you have a year, then you have the names of the copyright holders, and these copyright holders are actually authors. Sometimes it says authors instead of names. And then it says this is an open access article distributed under the Creative Commons Attribution license. And then it says what the license permits. So you can, because the license permits unrestricted use, distribution, even commercial use is allowed under this license. You don't have to ask permission because the license says you can use it, and you can use it. So what is usually a problem with these copyright notices is that researchers usually, when they see this copyright here and here, they usually understand wrongly that they can't do anything with this work. So this copyright here doesn't mean that it doesn't mean yet that use is restricted. Whether use is restricted or not depends on the third element, on this one, all rights reserved, or this one, the license. So you need to know how to read those elements. So this means just, this is the copyright information. This work is copyrighted. There are works that cannot be copyrighted, that don't, a work has to contain this creative element in order to be copyrighted. You just can't just make a selection of some things that are, I don't know, don't have this creative element and say, well, this is a or mechanically reproduce something and say, well, I reproduce this, this is copyrighted. It's not. So there are things that are not copyrightable. So this means that the work is copyrightable and that there is a copyright information, and that you should continue reading in order to learn how to use this this thing. In case this license, for example, said Creative Commons Attribution non-commercial, and you would like to use this work commercially, then in this case you would have to ask the copyright holder. In this case, these are the authors, so you would have to contact the authors in order to be able to ask and then to get their written permission to use the work. So the first case here, transfer of copyright. So you have publication agreements are usually signed between authors and publishers, and this is usually so for scholarly publications, for books, for scholarly articles, and for some reason researchers usually don't read these, and they just you know, they are in position to they're striving with promotion criteria, with research assessment criteria, and research assessment criteria require them to publish as much as possible. And also require them to publish with certain publishers who are considered prestigious publishers, good publishers, etc., which is not always the case. And then they are in a position to sign off their rights. They need to publish with a certain publisher, they need to score a certain amount of points, and they just sign these agreements. They don't negotiate. And they're not, the problem is that they are not even aware that they can retain some rights. They are not even aware that they don't have to sign off all the rights. So we have a problem. Librarians, institutions, we all have a problem. And also researchers have a problem if there is a kind of a national open science policy, or there is an institutional open science policy that requires them to put in to deposit in a repository their works that are publicly funded, because public has the right to if you publish scholarly publications using public money for your research, then, well, public needs to have the right to read this, to access these works, and they cannot, because the rights are signed off, and those publishers just lock behind a paywall these works, and nobody can access them. So this is a kind of a typical requirement, and there is a contract, and you sign this contract, and by the means of this contract you transfer copyright to the publisher. These terms may be different. So these agreements can be different. For example, you sign publication agreements with open access publishers, but in most cases, these are licensing agreements where you just give them the rights to publish and not to, so I will show you this. This is the license to publish for an open access publisher. So the authors usually retain copyright of the published paper, but they just give a non-exclusive right to publish to the publisher. And if this work is published under a liberal license, I will explain this later, then anybody else can use this work. So this is a kind of more desirable option. So in case you did this transferred copyright, in most cases you will be required to ask permission to use your own work. So, for example, you published an article with a commercial publisher, and you signed off your rights, and you need an image from your work, and this image was created by you, but you signed off your rights, and you need that image to publish in a book or another article. You need to ask permission from the publisher, because now they own the material, the economic rights, and you need to ask them to publish your image. So some of them have in their policies, they, for example, would reuse, allow reuse of such materials, for example, in PhD thesis automatically. Some of them, for example, wouldn't require you to pay for this, but you will probably, I don't know, you will have to ask, but they will send you the permission without asking you to pay. But in some cases, they will ask you to pay. For example, if you would like to use your own material created by yourself, but with copyright transfer to the publisher in a commercial publication, they would probably ask you to pay for this. And this is, well, this is not fair, but this is so because you signed such an agreement. For most commercial publishers, those big ones, you have as an option this copyright clearance center. This is a company. The image on the right, the screenshot on the right. This is a company, a commercial company, and actually all those publishers, they outsource this company to do this copyright clearance for them. Copyright clearance means people ask permission to use something, and then they either get or don't get, or get it under certain condition, but there is a standardized form, and then they fill out the form. And in case this is something that publisher allows, they get a written license agreement to use this particular image in this particular book. Not in all books they want to publish, but in this particular book. And they need to provide information about this particular book or a PhD thesis. Sometimes it takes a bit longer because for example, if charges are involved, then you need some correspondence through the system. So you log on, sign in, register, and then you sign in. It's free, but you communicate through the system. In case of some smaller publishers who are not outsourcing this company, you will probably have to contact the publisher, and this is usually done by means of a simple letter where you say, so I'm the original author of this work, and I need to reuse this, this, and this. So either you want to publish the whole text or parts of the text, or you need some images. You explain, and you must state where you will be reusing it, when is the publication of this new work is due, and under which condition, and whether it's commercial or not. And then you have to wait for some time to get a kind of response. Sometimes they don't respond really. If they're small publishers, I had such cases that they don't respond. And one of the situations, for example, in Serbia, we have a national open access mandate for PhD thesis. And the theses are automatically, after the defense, they are automatically open access. They are available in the national repository. So some faculties, there should be all, but not all of them are doing this. Some faculties require authors to clear the so-called third-party copyrights before submitting a PhD thesis, because this would be an issue. If a thesis is licensed under an open license and there is an image or something that is copyrighted, the copyright holder can, for example, require this PhD thesis to be taken down. And then you have a complicated situation. Then you probably have to take it down. Then you have to remove this image, which affects the integrity of the work, etc. So this is an issue, and that's very important for students, PhD students, to know about. And I usually do trainings for them and I usually support them practically. So they come with a list of images, and we try to do this clearance. So we try to establish the origin of the work, which is sometimes very difficult. And for example, we try to identify the images. These are usual images that are published in open access outputs, journals or books, which are under an open license. So we try to identify them, because for these works you don't have to ask permission, but for the other works you have to ask permission. And then in case we don't manage to clear the third-party rights, then my advice to researchers is to replace the image or to create their own if possible, because this is a safe way. So it's legal. It's not okay to keep the materials that with not clear copyrights without permission in any work. So I explained the license to publish. So I will now explain how you can retain some rights even if you sign a copyright agreement with a publisher or with anybody else. So in many countries, and an increasing number of countries, we are now having open access policies. And these can be national. For example, in Serbia, we have a national open science policy, which requires open access to scholarly publications. And it allows a kind of an embargo. So you need to make your works publicly available, but this doesn't have to be immediately. This can be after an embargo in humanities. This embargo is 18 months. So this means after 8 months, your publication needs to be available in open access in a repository. But this can be institutional policies. So for example, in our countries are usually more centralized. So it doesn't make sense for an institution to make a kind of policy if it's not aligned with a national policy. But in some other countries that are bigger, more decentralized, institutional policies are more important. And we also have funder policies. For example, European Commission is a funder, and they have their own policy which requires immediate open access. So even if you have your national policy allowing an embargo, if you are funded by the European Commission, which are the public funds of the citizens of the European Union, then you can't use the benefits of this embargo. You need to make your work immediately available because the funder requires so. So basically, this right retention is possible even if you're transferring copyrights, and there are multiple ways to do this. So for example, you can ask when before signing the agreement, you can say, so I need to add a clause to this agreement. I won't be explaining this now in detail, but there is a kind of a standardized author addendum that says, okay, I'm transferring all the copyrights to the publisher, but I need to make my author-accepted manuscript, so not the published work, but the manuscript that is still not typeset. I need to make it available in that and that repository due to because I need to comply with an open access policy. And in some cases, publishers will allow you to do this because it's an individual request. It's not on a massive scale. So there are chances that they will allow this. And also, I will explain two interesting cases that are gaining in topicality, especially, for example, in Bulgaria, because Bulgaria last year changed its copyright legislation to allow authors to make their works open, to help them actually make their works open access. So one of the options is self-archiving. That's what I explained, and that's what you can do this practically always. This is an old thing. It's been around for some time. So basically, the main thing that you need to know about is that you are the owner of the manuscript. Publishers, when they accept manuscript for publication, they do the typesetting, they design it, they put their logo on it, and they say, okay, we've invested a lot in this, and you can't use this work. This is ours. But you actually are the owner of a manuscript, and most publishers have policies that allow you to actually make this manuscript available in a repository. Very often it's a non-commercial repository, so institutional repositories, okay. And basically, you can do this after an embargo period. Sometimes it's without an embargo, but it's usually an embargo, and sometimes this embargo is quite long. It's 2 years, 3 years, and even more. So you basically need to check journal websites, but there is this database, Sherpa, and you go there and check whether you can do this. But in the humanities, people tend to publish more in national journals. So in national journals, if national journals are open access, so in our countries, they're mostly open access, you won't really have to do this. So this is what you do when you publish with commercial publishers. And this usually doesn't apply for books. Commercial publishers are very, very restrictive about books. So there is another thing that is now implemented in the European Union, because there is this coalition S thing. This is a coalition of funders, and European Commission is a part of this coalition. And they require all the works, the publications, to be immediately available in open access, either by publishing in an open access journals. And this must be under the CC BY license. I will explain this license. This is the license that allows everything, including commercial use. And this can also be an author-accepted manuscript. So this is this version that is not yet typeset. So you can deposit the manuscript in a repository, any repository, and this needs to be under the CC BY license. And most publishers don't allow this. So the Coalition S has developed with legal experts, in cooperation with legal experts, they developed rights retention strategy, which says, so if your funder requires you to publish under a certain license, and your publisher, if your publisher is the European Commission requires you to retain all the rights and to publish under this license, CC BY, then this is considered to be a prior license, an obligation that has legal precedence over any agreements that you sign with publishers. So if you put a license on your manuscript and the publisher is informed that you have this kind of obligation, this is you can actually, this has legal precedence, and you can later publish your manuscript in the repository under this license. Although the publisher self-archiving policy says something else. So this is quite complicated, and there is a struggle. There is a fight between publishers and funders about this topic. There are also institutional policies, especially in the UK, requiring rights retention. So this is an ongoing story. I don't expect you to understand the details now, but it's very important to understand that there is always a possibility to retain some rights, and that we need to develop a different copyright culture that empowers authors, where authors are, because they feel helpless, they feel blackmailed. So if I don't sign this agreement, they won't be publishing my article, and then I won't be able to, I don't know, get a higher rank, or get, I don't know, get promoted. So basically, it's very important to be aware that you have some rights. And even if you don't understand what right retention means, just remember that you have some rights, and go and ask either librarians or legal experts, and they will help you retain your rights. Secondary publishing rights, this is for especially interesting in Bulgaria, because Bulgaria changed their legislation. In a number of countries, there are 7 or 8 countries in Europe that have these clauses in their national legislation, which is similar to rights retention. It also has this prior license moment, because your publisher, national publisher, requires that all the works that are publicly funded must be available in open access. And in Bulgaria is the first country to have a zero embargo. So they have to be published immediately in open access. So you can publish the author accepted manuscript that is not typeset immediately in a repository. And the mechanism is basically the same. So also, you don't need to know the details, but just know that you have some rights. There is another interesting thing that is especially interesting for you, because you are using the photos of some objects, artworks, etc. So there is a thing that I became aware of this quite late, that is called freedom of panorama. So these are clauses in the copyright law allowing or disallowing, if there are not such provisions in the law, to take photographs and to make them public of artworks. So for example, if you have a building that is in public space, and the architect of this building is still alive or has died, but the period of 70 years hasn't expired yet, then if you make a photo of that building, and that building is in Greece, for example, which doesn't have this clause, freedom of panorama clause, in their law, you wouldn't be able to publish, to make this photo public, to use it in certain contexts. For example, it's usually non-commercial, etc. Or you won't be able to use it at all. So this map shows the countries that, for example, those green ones, they are more liberal, they allow more. And those for example, some of them, for example, those yellows, they allow copyright use in non-commercial use only. For example, I wouldn't be able, if I took a photo of a building where the architect is still alive and the building is in France, I wouldn't be able to put this image in this presentation, because my presentation is under a license that allows commercial use. So it's quite tricky, but you need to know. So you need to check whether the work you took the photo of is still in copyright, and in which country it is. So this is something that you need to be aware of. And also there is this thing called public domain. I already mentioned it, and there are 2 ways actually to provide public domain. One is to wait for the copyright term to expire. There are also some works, for example, that were created before the emergence of copyright legislation. For example, Renaissance works, Shakespeare, So they are in public domain automatically. Not the translations of these works, but these works, original works, are in public domain automatically. So this is one way. And there is the other way is by giving a license, by actually waiving some rights, the monetary rights, the economic rights. So this is this license, this is zero. I will explain, I will mention it later again. So I, as an author, for example, publish my photo on a website, and I put this license which says public domain dedication, and anybody can use this image, and they don't even have to credit me because I allow this, because I put that license on my work. So this is the public domain. And basically, when something is in public domain, you don't have to ask permission. You can use it in any way. You can use it even commercially. So, for example, you can print Shakespeare's work and sell them if it's not a particular translation that is still under copyright. So you can do this because it's in public domain. And there is this interesting tool link where you can check what is in public domain or not. So public domain differs depending on national legislation. So in some countries it is after 50 years. So for example, it's possible that a work that is in public domain in the US, for example, is not in public domain in other countries because the copyright, this duration of copyright term is longer in some other countries. So another complicated thing that is also related to artworks and pictures of artworks, and it may also be relevant for you. For example, if you're using photos of epigraphic materials. So this is quite a tricky area, and the legislation is not yet harmonized in this area. So basically, if an artwork is in public domain, a Renaissance image, technically you can take a photo of this work. So for example, if there is I don't know, an antique painting in a public space outside, outdoors, you can take a photo of it, and if it's your photo, you can publish your photo. But if you found a photo that was taken by somebody else of the same monument, and the author is still alive or hasn't died 70 years ago, then you won't be able to do this. So you would probably have to ask the author of this photograph to use this. There are discussions saying that, well, this is a kind of, a photo of an artwork. This is a kind of technical reproduction, so it doesn't contain this author element, this creative element. So this is disputable. So if you are using this, then you should keep it on the safe side and ask permission. Sometimes artworks are protected by copyright. For example, you have a painting, and the painter died 50 years ago, and then, well, it's still copyrighted. Then you can't make public. You can't use a reproduction. But basically, if the artworks, this first case, when artworks in a museum, and although they are in public domain, the artworks, there are restrictions that can be set by museums, and they are usually set by the museums because museums are exploiting these works and they are owners, and they can set limitations by terms of use. So you probably won't be able to use it. So I put an example here. So for example, I made a photo of a painting in a museum, but I couldn't put this photo here because this presentation will be it's now publicly disseminated and it can be used commercially. So I couldn't put the photo here because there are limitations set by the museum's terms of use. So this is really, really complicated. And if you're creating a database that contains photos that are taken by somebody else, then you need to take care of copyright clearance. So you need to check who the author of the photo is and to ask permission to use it or not. And also, if it is in a museum, also you need to ask permission to use it. There are still ongoing discussions. This is a huge issue, and there are still ongoing discussions about this. So this legislation will probably change and will probably become more open, more liberal. But at the moment, it's quite complicated. So licenses in the digital environment, we are now coming to the Creative Commons licenses that were probably mentioned during the previous days. So when the digital environment appeared with the rise of internet, and not only the internet, but before the internet, we had some digital media containing some digital content. There was a need, the need to have something more standardized became apparent, because, for example, I already mentioned, you want to give a license to somebody to use your work in a particular way, for example, to copy it, to make it available on their website, etc. So this is done by means of an agreement, written agreement. And so this means that if you have something on the website and there is all rights reserved, or there is nothing, people need to ask you. Each person who wants to use it, each institution who wants to use it needs to write to you, and then you need to provide a written agreement saying, I entitle you to use this and this and this way, which is time consuming, and it's difficult. You would probably need some legal advice and to pay to a legal expert to help you. So that's why those standardized machine readable licenses that you just, you deposit a photo on Wikimedia Commons and you just select a license from a drop-down menu and it's assigned. So you are depositing in, Dragana will show you later, you are depositing in Zenodo. Then you just select a license from a drop-down menu and it's assigned. And it has a power of a written agreement because it's standardized, it's developed by legal experts, and it's very interesting, it's enforceable by law. So it has the same strength, the same meaning as a written license signed by the parties. Basically, these licenses work, I've already explained this. So if a license allows something, for example, commercial use, you don't have to ask. You can use it commercially. There is no need to write to the copyright holder. But if the license doesn't permit this doesn't mean that this is not allowed at all. You need to ask. So, for example, the copyright holder might allow you to use this, or might require you to pay, but you can still ask. So that's very important to know, that you can always ask. And there is also this kind of copyleft principle. It was developed in the software development environment, where you actually grant certain freedoms over copyrighted works, but in a way that those who are using these works have to perpetuate this license. So they have to grant the same rights to other users. So, for example, if I'll explain this on the example of Creative Commons licenses. So these Creative Commons licenses are standardized licenses. They were developed in 2002. So it's clear that they are actually made for a digital environment, and they are usually used. You can use this license for a print work, but only if this print work is available online. So they have these simple images that indicates some conditions. So these conditions, this person here, means that you need to attribute work to respect somebody's moral right. So you have to credit somebody as an author. And all of these licenses have this condition. Even the more liberal ones, they have this condition, except for the CC0, which is actually dedication, public domain dedication. So you need to credit the person. So then this one, non-commercial, means that the work can be reused, but non-commercially. And then you have various combinations. So, for example, this work can be used non-commercially, and it can be even translated and put to another media, etc., converted to another media, but as long as it's not commercial and as long as the author is credited. But if you have this sign, this means that the work can be used only as it is. So you can't make translations, for example, of this work. So these combinations give different licenses, which are cover quite much. And then you have this diagram showing what is allowed and what is not allowed. So I will now explain this copyleft thing. So, for example, if I put this license, Creative Commons CC BY, this means that my work can be used commercially. So this presentation that you are now watching is under this license. And you can if you wish, you can use this presentation, you can print it, and you can sell the printed versions, or you can sell the digital versions of this very same presentation. And I don't mind. I allow this. I put the license that allow this. But if I put this license that says share alike, this means that yes, you can sell this presentation, the new work, but you have still to share it under the same license so that other people can use it. We are now Wikipedia and all wiki projects, they use this license. This is a copyleft license, basically. They're using this license. And I must say that this is my preferred license. But I'm using CC BY because it's, I understand that it's easier, it makes it easier for other people to use my work. For example, if you want to post this presentation on a website that is using that is publishing advertisements, and if you're using a kind of free hosting option, then you will probably have advertisements. If I put non-commercial, then you wouldn't be able to use it there, and I want you to be able to use it there because you don't have money to pay professional hosting. So I'm using this liberal license, open license, the most open license, for the sake of convenience. And this is the license that is recommended by, for example, the European Commission as a publisher. Also, I always use this CC0 license for metadata. And this is also relevant for you. For example, if you're creating a repository, it's very important to share the metadata under this license, because if you're not selling this metadata, then it's beneficial for you, because huge systems, huge aggregators, they don't bother asking you permission to use or not to use. So if you want to be harvested by those big aggregators, then it's convenient for you. If you're not selling the metadata, it's convenient for you to use this license that actually enables them to share further, to disseminate further, to process your data. So that's why I recommend using this license. And there is a declaration was signed some days ago about scholarly information in Barcelona, which actually requires this license to be used in national CRIS systems, repositories, etc., having this metadata thing in them, not the full text. So basically, I will explain another thing that I identified as particularly confusing for researchers. So I have some text in Serbian here. I don't understand why, but it doesn't matter. I will remove it. So basically, you also have three elements here, three pieces of information for each license. So you have this image. This image is reflected in the first part. So it's not that these three details are actually reflected in the image. No, this image refers only to the first part. And it says CC Creative Commons. Okay, this is the type of the license. Then you have attribution. This is this person here. Okay, let's move back. And then this non-commercial. So these are the conditions of the license. This is called the license module. So these are license modules. So this is the license module. License module actually defines how the work, this is crucial, and it explains how a work can be used. Then you have something that is license versions. License develop, because the environment develops. And then there are multiple license versions. We are now at version 4. So there sometimes, well, you have those legacy licenses. So this indicates the version. This version almost never changes these conditions. So basically, it doesn't really matter whether it's 4 or 3. These conditions are the same. So this is something that people don't understand. They sometimes think that this version determines the conditions of use. It doesn't really. It's the first part. And then you have the name of the country. Here it's Serbia, here it's international. This is called jurisdiction because up to the version 4, there were local translations of the license and there were local adaptations of the Creative Commons licenses. And this was done because people wanted to align them with the national legislation because they need to be legally enforceable. Now it's not recommended anymore. So version 4 doesn't have these, it can have translations, but it doesn't really have those different jurisdictions. It's international. And also what is new in this version 4, so this CC0 actually didn't exist before version 4. So this is something that is, you don't even have to remember, but basically it's important to understand and remember that this first part and these images actually determine the conditions of use. These licenses, Creative Commons licenses, they're very, very convenient. They're very widespread. They're probably the most widespread among open licenses. And there is, if you don't really know which license to apply, there is this chooser, and you go there and you answer a set of questions. There is a form, you answer a set of questions, and then you get the license generated. Depending on what, and the questions are very simple. So then you can copy this license and you even get a code, HTML code that you can paste on your website. So it's really very, very convenient. And in most repositories, these licenses are in institutional repositories, they're embedded, technically embedded. You just select them from because somebody else has done this before you. And you just select them from a drop-down list. And this is how they look. So they have 3 layers, and they actually have the same power. So there is a legal code behind them. So there is a text, and this text contains all the elements of a contract between a licensing contract between a copyright holder and the licensee, the person. So in this case, you as an author give the license to everybody else to use. And this is the contract that is actually automatically generated. It is ready-made. It's technically enabled by those who created these licenses. And there is the explanation how to use this. As opposed to those licenses, there are different licenses for software. So you can technically you can use a Creative Commons license for software depending on the repository, but they are not the most convenient. Software licenses actually, they started to develop before Creative Commons licenses. Creative Commons licenses are a kind of a derivative of, it's not the right word, but they were inspired by software licenses. And software licenses started to develop in the late 1970s, 1980s. And that's where this copyleft culture, where you actually take care that people reusing in the future your work can reuse it, and that a company cannot close the code and say, now you can't develop this anymore. So this culture of open copyleft culture, it actually emerged in the software environment. So there are many such licenses. And usually if you have software code, these licenses are usually, they're machine readable, so they are embedded in the code. And you are required not to change this piece of code, crediting all the previous contributors or original authors of the software. They're quite complicated. So they're quite complicated even for people developing software, let alone us. But it's good to know that they are different and that they're publicly available, so you can check them. Also, there are some other data licenses. I only mentioned one. This is Open Data Commons. It's very similar to this copyleft license, City by Share Alike. So it depends on the repository. So some repositories have this license embedded in it. But this is adjustable. Yeah, people developing repositories can choose which licenses to embed. So now there is a new emerging issue. I don't know much about this. So we all, last year, we were all a bit kind of in a state of shock with the emergence of these chatbots. And then actually, although artificial intelligence has existed for a while, for decades, as a concept or as a specific piece of software. It's only with the chatbots and with their public availability that actually the Pandora box was opened. And now we are having very fervent discussions, and we are having legislation developed all over the world trying to address this. We have recommendations relating to publishing, trying to regulate the use of artificial intelligence. So basically, I recommend here using this very simple, it's been published weeks ago, this document. It has about 16 pages, and it's developed by WIPO. And it actually highlights some of the challenges. So which are the challenges related, for example, to the use of generative artificial intelligence? So generative artificial intelligence, these are tools that actually create something new. So they don't just process data, but they create something that can be considered original. It's disputable whether, and this is a part of these discussions, but there's something that looks different than what you already have. So for example, if you're using a chatbot, a chatbot can create, can communicate with you. Well, it's also disputable whether we should consider this communication or not, but they produce pieces of text that look original. They are pre-trained, they're reusing materials that somebody put into them when training them. And one of the legal issues related to intellectual property is whether these materials used during the training of those artificial intelligence tools, they're probably copyrighted. So whether the creators of these tools had the right to use these materials. So this is a huge issue, and there are several cases on the trying to be resolved on the court. So the litigation is going on in many places. Publishers sued these companies creating those tools. Another issue related to copyright is whether you should credit the artificial intelligence tool. So for example, if you're writing a summary of something and you're using this text in a blog post, in a research paper, etc., whether you should credit so some legislations, most legislations say that no, a machine cannot be a tool, cannot be an author, cannot be considered an author, because they are not legally accountable. They cannot be copyright holders. They cannot license the rights to somebody else. But it seems to me that the UK legislation is going towards recognizing those tools as potential copyright holders. So this is an open issue. So basically, current recommendations of publishers and the associations of journal publishers and publishers, scholarly publishers in general, say that the tool cannot be considered a copyright holder, but that you need to be very transparent about and very honest, and you should indicate whether you've used such tools or not. And also another thing that is important, that because these tools are using potentially copyrighted materials, it is possible that what you get as an output from them, the text that they generate, it can contain pieces of other text that are copyrighted, and there is a risk of plagiarism accusation. So this material can be recognized as plagiarized, and plagiarism is usually associated with copyright infringement. And then sometimes if you use longer pieces of somebody's text, then this is copyright infringement, and which is in the West, it's more severe than plagiarism, because you can be sued for this at the court. So there are many elements, and there are many open issues relating to this. I highly recommend using this, reading and using this manual, and actually keeping an eye on the developments in this area, because these recommendations tend to change, and we are still expecting the major legislation relating to this. European Union is working on this a lot. And the problem with this generative AI tools is that we don't really know everything about them. They are not very transparent, and we don't really know how they work. And there are some issues at this moment. We can't even identify all the potential issues related to intellectual property. That's basically all that I have to say. Now I'm sharing the slide because you have some resources there. And some of these resources are actually a bit more, include some other sources. So for example, about rights retention, you have a selection of sources. So this is not only one resource, it is links. And that's all. Now I would like to answer some questions if you have any.
Thank you, Milica, for this very, very rich presentation and a lot of topics that are of great interest to us. So maybe if there are questions.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you very much for this exhaustive presentation. For me at least, it's a complex topic, and I don't know that much about it in detail. So it was very useful. Concerning copyrights to the different parts of the project, I'm now trying to give you what we do with Telemon, and you can give us a feedback if this is viable. So the content, the code of the visualization tool that we are using for the site and distributions of which we are using here in this workshop, together with the code of the encoded inscriptions themselves, and we will probably publish them as a separate data set on Zenodo, or which we will learn later. And the content itself on the web page, if you go and see an inscription, or something like that, this is all we have put it into Creative Commons attribution, non-commercial, non-derivative. However, images are quite another story, because usually the images are not taken personally by our epigraphist, Dr. Sharankov, or are taken by the museum. And if they are taken personally by Dr. Sharankov or somebody else from our team, this is with the explicit permission of the museum to be used for only that purpose. And we were fearing, as it proved on one or two occasions, I will not go deeper into that, that they, of course, some of the, not this one, this is a scan, but some of the images are very good, especially the one who were done by us, of the monument itself. They're very good, very detailed, and they can be used to explore the inscription by yourself, but they probably could also be used for reprinting them in illicit publications, for which we haven't given the license and for which the museum hasn't given the license. So we decided to include here a small watermark containing both the name of our project and of the museum. And we stated that in our terms of use, that everything else would be under Creative Commons, but the image sources are copyrighted to the institutions where they're stored and or their author.
Yes, you can say that something is copyrighted under this and this license unless stated differently. Okay. And then you indicate. Also, there is another option that we have in our repositories. This is that we indicate a license, a different license for each item.
Yeah.
Because people don't really, it's good to have a license embedded on the page because and linked, because they don't read those copyright notices and terms of use. So it's good that you watermarked images. I would, I mean, I'm not familiar that with the work of your community and potential undesirable uses. I would always go for a more liberal license, because my logic is if you don't exploit it, economically, then sharing is beneficial. And for example, even about those chatbots. So we had a discussion about this, whether it should be, for example, how to restrict use. And I was thinking, like, if we have problems with these chatbots that are not trained on proper materials, and they are not very useful for some areas of research, it's quite inevitable they will be developing further. And then my logic was, okay, if I can give something to them to feed them with good food, I will do this because I'm not monetizing. I'm not monetizing my
I
work.
tried to do this, and ChatGPT refused and said, "Okay, I'm fed with new information, with updated information only when my
some years ago.
I forgot how I put it, but basically whenever my master feeds me, this is when because I can imagine otherwise everybody dropping to them pieces of information
No,
which
it's
may
not.
be wrong, and they cannot
No,
get.
it's not how they work.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not how they work. They don't foresee this kind of use. But for example, there is a rise of customized chatbots used in research.
Yeah.
And for example, in material science, in nanoscience, they're using it. So the good thing is that, for example, you can create, if you have the skills, you can create your own chatbot for your discipline, and you can train it, because you can find open source software for
This
this
is a very good idea,
purpose.
actually. It
Yeah,
requires a lot of work, but
yeah.
the output will be
This
really
could be a
beneficial.
project. And for example, imagine a chatbot speaking Latin and being able to, for example, provide some suggestions, some predictions based on the text, the text that you've interpreted and encoded. So this could be, for example, a project, an idea. So I'm not monetizing anything, and I'm very liberal regarding the uses, because it's quite inevitable.
Yeah,
When the fast starts, then you can't stop it. It's just a process, and then you can just
absolutely.
see how to control this process and how to make those tools
Yeah,
better.
yeah. So this is why we opted when we have a Creative Commons license, like attribution, because we want to
Yeah,
preserve our moral rights, of course. Non-commercial, because we don't want to anybody to
yeah,
monetize this, and no derivatives, because it could be used for, unfortunately, especially in the internet space. This is another question which I believe all of our countries share in common. It could be used in all sorts of scientific or parascientific publications here and there. So we want, if our information is reproduced, we don't want any derivatives of it, because we wanted to say in the copies of our information exactly what we said about the monument, and not have any sort of
yeah.
free
So
reign interpretations and things like
yeah,
that.
the problem is that
Yeah.
this prevents translation, which could be useful,
No.
but basically, yes, but basically, you can do probing. For example, in Serbia, we had this conversation with journals some years ago, when we started persuading them to introduce licenses, because license is a way to tell to the others how they can use something, and they were not aware of this. They were like, but anybody can use it. I published it on the internet. It's available. Anybody. So they are fair in this. So they use somebody else's content. It's not if there is no copyright information, but they assume that anybody can use their content.
Yeah.
So they're flexible about it. This is a kind of, the lack of this culture. And then we said, but you need to tell to the people that they can use it. So use a license. And they were not sure about the license. And we said, okay, so if you're not sure, if you're afraid, then you can always use the most restrictive license, CC BY, non-commercial, non-derivatives. And then after some time, you will realize the risks. You will, for example, see whether people are contacting you, who are these people, what are the uses. So you can also see, because those who want to infringe somebody else's rights, they will do this anyway.
Yeah.
They don't really care. But you will search the internet, you will find them, you will identify them. And after some time, you will know whether to keep the same license or whether you can go on. So many journals, for example, moved towards a more liberal license.
Yeah.
They moved to CC BY or moved to CC BY non-commercial, but allowed translation, etc. So, and many journals also, they some years ago, they required copyright transfer because they had issues with authors, which is very difficult for me to explain to my colleagues in the West, that the authors would publish with a journal and they say, no, I want my article closed. I don't want it open access. So the journals required copyright transfer, not because they wanted to monetize this, but because they wanted to ensure this is completely weird, but this is how it works in our area. So then after some time, the culture among authors changed, and now they don't have such stupid ideas. And then many journals now allow authors to retain copyright because they don't really need it. Why would they need to, I don't know, sign permissions for something? They just want to publish it. So this is something that is flexible. But yeah, your approach is very good, and it's very important to know to identify all the elements that require a different license.
Yes.
As you did.
Yes. By the way, thank you for your answer. By the way, I want to state that all the training materials that we have been using, for the exception of the guest lecturers one, I don't know about everybody, but the EPIDOC training materials that we've been using, all of them, including the ones who are not by us, as you saw, many of them are by Gabriel Bodar or Eli Milonas or Simona Stoyanova or somebody. They are all CC BY.
Yeah.
So they are all, yes, and we intended to, and we will eventually, when we polish them a bit, we will eventually update them and add our names to that also. So everything is CC BY that is shared in your working program, actually. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a
Thank you
good
very much.
approach. No, it's great. It's great.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I want just to add something. I thought I knew some things about this, but obviously it turns out that I don't know so much. So honestly, these things that I heard were quite new and interesting for me. So thank you very much for the great lecture. I want to ask you one question, but I understand some your views during the discussion with Professor Iliev. Wanted to, I wanted to ask you, what suggestion do you have for the access license for our project, or what license accesses are usually allowed for such projects, such as our, for example, public access for non-commercial stuff or something like that?
So
What
it's
do you
up to
think?
you. You're the authors. So the main point of my presentations is that the authors decide. So if you're an author, you can decide to close it, which I don't recommend, but it's up to you. So basically, I always recommend CC0 for metadata. It's very important because you benefit from metadata dissemination. I established my institutional repository, the first one, in 2013. And my first license for metadata, because when I established it, this was the first repository that was actually operational in Serbia. And I wanted to have a repository policy. I had just heard that the repositories should have policy. I wanted to develop one. And then there was a tool developed at the University of Southampton or something like this. And I went there and I developed a policy. And then there was a question about the license for metadata. And I said non-commercial. And after some time, I was approached by a Chinese commercial database, and they said, we would like to harvest your repository. So they have a protocol. It's open. They can technically harvest it. I don't know. I cannot be even aware of it. But they asked. They were okay, and they asked, and I said, no. This is non-commercial. But after some time, I started asking myself. So, you measure what are the benefits and what are the disadvantages. So the benefits are that it gets disseminated. The disadvantages is that some people that you don't really like can use it commercially. And then when I was thinking, okay, so if I limit use, those who would like to harvest it, they don't probably have the resources or the knowledge, or they don't want to bother because it's complicated for them, because then they can't license their metadata under a free license, because they are having my metadata with a restricted license, so they would probably just avoid me. So I'm losing more than I'm getting, because I can't prevent those who want to monetize it. They will find a way to monetize it. So that's the logic. So you always make a good idea is to make a kind of a risk assessment and risk assessment is always a great thing. You try to assess what you get, what you lose, what the risks are, what are potential illicit uses. Perhaps, for example, if you allow liberal use, then some of the museums you're collaborating with may not be willing to collaborate with you because they don't want this kind of use. They wouldn't allow you. So this is a kind of risk. So then you assess these risks and you try to communicate. For example, for me, my perception is that museums should be more liberal, and my perception is that legislation should be changed and should allow a public domain for the stuff in the museum that is out of copyright. So that's my personal opinion, and I don't think it's fair. I know that they are earning the money, but there are other ways to earn the money, and many of them are publicly funded. So for me, it's not okay for museums. And an increasing number of museums, they are, for example, Rijksmuseum, they are sharing high quality photos. So they say, okay, it's compromise. Don't share your photos. We are providing the photos. You can use our photos. You can find them on the website. So this is a kind of culture that's been changing. But if you're running a small project and you are not sure about the sustainability of your project, it's always a good idea to make a risk assessment, start with something, after some time, review your risk assessment, change what can be changed, and keep on developing it like this. Or you can, for example, try to identify the aggregators that you want to collaborate with and try to analyze their policies to see, for example, whether and then sometimes there are options, for example, I'm delivering the metadata from my repository to WorldCat. WorldCat has their own license. This is not a CC license. So, but I do this through their platform. I register the repository there. I set up for harvesting. So this is a kind of a direct communication, and I'm delivering this metadata to them under the conditions different than those that apply to other repositories. So this is always an option. So then if you see that you are not compliant with their requirements, try to communicate with them and to see how to overcome this. And this can influence your further development. So you should think about this as a developing infrastructure. And you should know that it's up to you. If you're an author, it's up to you. You don't look at the others. They may have different sustainability plans. They might have a public funder who can support everything, and they're fine with who requires open access to everything. So you just, decide for yourself.
Thank you for the answer. We can take it
I
as
just-
a suggestion, liberal approach. Thank you.
I just wanted to add something. If you remember from Milita's presentation, it depends a lot on the funder. So if you're funded by European Commission, for example, they have requirements for how the material generated in the project should become available. So this is also one significant point that we should all keep in mind.
Yeah, the European Commission always requires CC BY license, and for everything, for deliverables, for presentations, for everything.
So, and also there can be a compartmentalization
Yeah.
of different elements. For example, a different license for metadata, different license for some other work, different license for something that's borrowed, for example, for museum collections, or that can be also regulated by some sort of agreement between project and certain institutions, for example, just to have something in writing. So it's as things seem to me, it can be very flexible as long as it is licensed in a way.
Yes, but also it's, for example, if you're using third-party materials, then different conditions apply. So you have to close them if it's not allowed. But for example, if it's your work, if you actually encoded an inscription, then and this is part of a project, you will probably have to, if CC BY is required, you will have to apply CC BY to this encoded piece of work.
Yeah.
Thank you again.
Does anyone have something to add?
Or ask?
Okay, maybe if you have questions later.
Yeah, I'll stay here so you can ask.
To add, perhaps we can move forward to the presentation about the use of Zotero. And I'm glad to have Milica here because she will be great support in this part of the workshop. Let me just share my screen. No. Okay, so using Zotero in digital projects, actually, I would like to start with what Zotero is. I don't know if you're familiar with this tool and website. So quick facts. It is a free open source research tool that helps you collect and analyze research, as it states here. This is a official definition, to share in a variety of ways. So what does that mean? Actually, it is a sort of a database that you can collect and reuse any bibliographic material for many types of research. And today I will concentrate here only on several important points which can be useful for our type of work. It is a project that was initially started in a research center that belongs to university in Virginia, and now it is maintained by a non-profit organization. So it is a project that is non-profit and has a great support in community, and it is being constantly supported and developed, and it's something that's very sustainable as a solution. And also it is, although it has some plans that can be paid, a lot of stuff here is actually free. So it is a great, it is my preferable choice because it's very versatile, and I can do a lot of it without paying anything for my project, because sometimes when you budget, you have to prioritize in what you will be able to pay from the funds that you receive, but also you would like to have many outlets for those type of work that can be done for free. And furthermore, that can be done with great ease. I would like to have a tool that helps me do some stuff quicker. And especially if that tool is like Zotero, something that saves time because it can do something for me with a click. So this is, I've made a screenshot of an online version of the Zotero application, and also there is a standalone application that you can download from their website and install it for free on your machine. And I thought maybe later in the hands-on part we can do this stuff together if you haven't done that already. So I will just not to bother you with all the details because Zotero is very well documented and you can learn a bunch of stuff online. I will just show you some basic features that are very useful. First of all, to see how we feed the data to the database, that can be manual, which is rather slow, but can be done. You can import references from different databases and catalogs. And the most convenient and something that we'll focus on today is Zotero connector that can grab bibliographic data from any site or documents. It works well for documents as well, and imports them into your collection. Also, there is something that I just know about and I haven't tried, is a mobile app, which is actually can work as a scanner, and you can scan barcode or enter ISBN number, and it inserts reference into your collection via mobile phone. I tried typing in one ISBN number, and actually it's for one of my works, and it imported all the data, all the metadata without an error. Also, you can drag and drop PDFs, but this is not very advisable because you will probably, the metadata that you will get will not be of good quality. Or you can extract from some PDFs, but then again, it depends on how well these things are made in the initial documents. So for that reason, this is, I highlighted some of the preferable tools. And this is how field for entering metadata looks like. As you can see, so if you enter manually, you have to type in select journal article, type in the title, paste an abstract and stuff like that. And with connector, this goes right through to the database. This is the documentation. I will leave links in the training materials. And if there is some other stuff that you need to learn, this is the place that you can go to and just see how some things are done. You'll probably have no trouble in finding a feature that can fit your need. And now the feature that I was talking about can be, as you can see, it can be installed on most of the commercial browsers. And it looks like a button. It's this button here that just grabs metadata and enters it in your database. I have made a short video here to show you how things are done. I go to the website, I click the button, select the collection that I want to put it in, and the metadata just appear in your collection. Okay, so I want to go to the next slide. If you try to grab metadata from For example, a page that belongs to online edition or online database that contains multiple, for example, a page in a database that contains references of all articles in one number of a journal. You receive all the titles, and you can select which ones do you want to enter into your collection. So this is also possible to grab multiple references at the same time with a connector, which is something can be very convenient if you're trying to gather a lot of data that are under the same collection. But with connector, you always have to be very cautious and just perform every time that you enter something from the internet, because metadata can vary. This import can be of very different quality, so you always have to check what was actually transmitted, and if there are any errors or something is misplaced, which can happen. You can very easily manipulate data, because the program, as you will see later, is very versatile and very easy to use. So practically anyone can learn to use Zotero in like half an hour. You can become very very familiar with how things work here. So this is, for example, these are titles in one collections, and by accident I just stumbled upon a reference of one of our speakers, and this is I don't know if you see on this part of screen how metadata are here collected here in this window. So everything is very neat, and you'll try later to manipulate this data to see how easy it is to work with that. And why do we need this type of tool in our work? Well, because we all deal with a lot of bibliographic data, and we don't want to type it in a Word document, for example. We want to be able to do more with it and to do less work if it's possible. And it is possible, at least for this type of information. As you have probably know, metadata are usually something that's very out there, and it's usually, it can be, even though if work is behind the paywall, you'll probably have metadata that are free to use. So how can we harness all the potential of these type of tools? And there are others. I haven't mentioned that. There are other similar solutions, for example, Mendeley or other databases. But I prefer Zotero because I'm used to it, and it has some practical purposes. But it can be done with other solutions as well. So it is very useful, especially for the projects that want to achieve that are, in the first place, that are collaborative, and it can be useful for the projects that want to achieve greater openness. So you can create a community. It's not called it's called a group in Zotero. In some other it's called community, but you can create a group and have a group library that can be either closed only for members, or it can be open, so that what you create there can be a bibliographic database that's open to anyone, and that can be used in a number of different ways to display your group's interests, or for example, project bibliography or numerous. There I can name numerous purposes of this type of libraries, but anyone can apply this to their project's needs. What's great about Zotero group libraries is that it can be used not only for example, collecting bibliographic data about a topic, but it can be used for documentation purposes. I will show you later what that can imply, but the fact that you can not only collect references, but you can also tag them with the keywords or any tag set that you want to set for your collection, and also attach and link material to specific references is very powerful. What else? This is probably one of the most important features for our specific topic here in this workshop and our project, is that the references that are entered in Zotero can be exported in a number of formats. Not only to TI. TI is most relevant for us here, but there is a range of different formats that it can export to. For example, this is a screenshot of a bibliography from FS database. And this is, you see arrow pointing to the reference, the same reference that is in Zotero. Actually, the arrow should go the other way around, because the reference was initially entered in Zotero and then exported to TEI and then visualized by FS. So in using Zotero for documentation, this is a screenshot from our epigraphy project, where we used this tool as sort of as an experiment, because we had already made documentation elsewhere in some other collaborative environment. We had numerous sources to compile from, but we also made this documentation, which consists of references and link material connected to each inscription that we would want in our collection. So it looks like this. For each collection, we made a folder that contains numerous subfolders further containing bibliographic references for each inscription. So, and also we included some of the material that was in other databases that contains links to those databases as well as their reference numbers, so that we can very quickly move between different online resources that are already existing and that we want to use to link in our project. So whenever possible, we entered an open source, a link to an open source content. For example, Remše Studin in Serbian. We have a link for archive page. And if we follow that link, it will lead us to the original publication that is in open access for its publication that's in public domain, and it can be browsed. And so what we wanted to achieve is to replace a hard copy-paste system of cards with not replace, but we wanted also to have this this feature, which is very convenient, because we can all, if there are multiple persons on the project, everyone can sign in with their account and add stuff, build on stuff and stuff like that, because it's very collaborative. A lot of people can work on the same thing at the same time, and it appears immediately. So this is just the same, for example, a linked content. This is a snapshot of our documentation. This is a link to an open content, and when you follow the link, you will open the original article. And this is really this can be useful to trace. It's a big it's a very tedious job, but it can be useful because if you have to check some older readings or find a old photograph of a monument that's lost, for example, you'll have this instantly in this documentation. So this is something that I've mentioned, and I thought maybe this would be an interesting task for a hands-on session, is how to use Zotero as intermediary tool. So this is all. You don't have to use this as a documentation tool if you don't want to. It can be a big job, but it can be useful if you can use Zotero to skip the step of typing in bibliographies and then encoding them by hand, or if you want to use them in some different type of repository that allows importing. Zotero can be really good because it's really manipulation of data is very easy, as you will see. And there is a lot of outputs that can be generated from a single. So sort of, it's like what we did with Epidoc and encoding and TEI, that there is one input and outputs can be multiple. For example, it can we only use the XMLs here to visualize data on the website, but those data can also be exported to a print version document, PDF, or any type of scenario that you want to set your transformation to be. So you can, for example, you can prepare an Epidoc corpus and visualize it on the website, but also you can have, with the help, at least I'm speaking for myself, I wouldn't be able to do that without a programmer, but it is possible for someone to program a transformation scenario that transport your XML data into an actual print-ready format. So the same goes for the references. So if you collect them automatically and with a slight editing if needed, you can transport it. You can select and export that data into any format that you need. So this is a snapshot of some of the. I don't know if all are here, but you recognize some of those TEI as our main topic, but also BibLaTeX, comma-separated values, and Note XML, which is also another system. Mods is also very popular. You have wiki citation templates, which can be useful if someone is editing a Wikipedia article or anything from that universe, and also Dublin Core. I've never tried this, and I don't know if it works well, but I know for TEI and for this RIS format, which I used a lot, that things work pretty good. For example, this is an import tool for our institutional repository, and this is something that we used a lot to import. Initially, import a lot of a large amount of data with just loading a bunch of files, hundreds of references with a single click and with just slight editing. So, and this is to finish the presentation, this is an export into TEI. As you can recognize, some of the things that Elena showed you yesterday about how to encode bibliographic references in TEI. This is what you get from exporting Zotero reference. It's just one reference. Perhaps you will have slightly more work when you export the whole collection. You probably want to edit. But in any case, it saves you from endlessly tagging title, level J, Bibl, scope, unit, volume, and stuff like that. So if you have to edit just a thing or two to fit the needs of your bibliography that you want to display in your project, it's really time saving. And that's all from this presentation. So I would stop sharing now, and if someone has a question about this part. Anyone?
Does anyone use?
No, is this completely new software for all of you?
Affirmative.
Affirmative. Okay, so we'll try some stuff later. I thought maybe only basic stuff like installing, grabbing a reference, and then exporting it to TEI for the hands-on session. Okay, so no questions at all. Shall I proceed to Zenodo then?
Yes, you can.
Okay. So I will just let me switch the presentations. Okay. I don't know why. Okay, so Zenodo in digital projects. Here also I wouldn't bother you with many details. I will only concentrate to things that will be maybe interesting or important to us. But first, to say what Zenodo is, it is an open repository. And it is a general repository in contrast to some other types such as institutional repositories or thematic repositories. So it's very open to any type of communities that can be created. It is developed under the European Open Air, which is a very important sort of central initiative that goes along the policy of European Union as a funder of projects and the requirement to make stuff open. And it is operated by CERN, as you know, it is the European Organization for Nuclear Research. So it is something that is it is supported by European Union. Unlike Zotero is a non-profit organization's project. And what Zotero is, what Zenodo is, it's not, it's a completely different concept than the previous website. As a repository, it can store any type of research, not only the published material, but also all sorts of materials that are generated by any of the authors belonging to academic community. So this can be books, conference papers, different reports, such as, for example, deliverables for project, PhD thesis, all types of theses, posters, but also it can store images and software, which is very important, especially for technical sciences, but it can be applicable in humanities as well. Also different interactive materials, for example, lectures and stuff that are useful for educational purposes. What is the main perk of using Zenodo is that it can assign DOI numbers or digital object and identifiers that says everyone that who published some work that are available online, probably at some point you came across DOI number. And why are those numbers as identifiers are important is because they allow in the first place, they allow permanent linking, and in a lot of ways they facilitate citation and attribution of authors, which is also very important and very related to our today's topics of rights. But also it can, because it's a stable identifier, it greatly contributes to discoverability of objects in the internet. And also they, which is very important, they contribute to interoperability because they do not vary. They represent a standardized form for specific reference. This is when you want to deposit something in Zenodo, you can create a regular Zenodo account, but also, as you see in this slide, you can use, if you already have some other accounts, you can use them to also to become a user of Zenodo, because it is integrated with OrcID, with OpenAir, of course, because it's they're naturally linked, and also with GitHub, which is a thing that I would like to concentrate on here. So the integration between GitHub and Zenodo means that if you have some stuff that you're working on and you put it on, for example, a collection of encoded inscriptions, and you want to have a GitHub repository for your project so that you can have version control and collaborative work that's done neatly and transparently, you can later, thanks to this integration, you can use in theory some of this, the stuff that are in your GitHub repository. They can automatically become part of your Zenodo account, and via that, you can assign a DOI number to the elements in your repository. You can do so also by creating a Zenodo community, which gives you even greater possibilities, and it's really great for a project to have a Zenodo community, because it is very versatile, and a lot of stuff can be much better organized if you keep them in this sort of open repository. I created here for our Prometheus project, I created a Zenodo community that currently doesn't host any references, but here it is. And so we can ideally put some stuff and get a citable DOI and store, have a permanent place where some of our materials that we want to publish can live. So when you want to deposit something in a Zenodo repository, it asks you if you already have a DOI number for this upload. So perhaps if it is a published work in a journal, it may have already a DOI assigned to it. But if not, if this is just basically, if I wanted to deposit my PowerPoint presentation from today's session, for example, I can deposit it in Zenodo, and because it is not published in a publication that assigns DOI, I can receive a DOI from Zenodo, which is great, because that will become a stable identifier that I can share and that can be cited in if someone has the need to cite my presentation. So this is I used one paper that I already had in Zenodo just to show you how deposited abstract, for example, looks like from a conference. And you can see here that all versions can be cited under this DOI number that has some alphanumeric strings, and Zenodo is in place where publication would usually be. So it can, as you intuitively can see from this slide, Zenodo also supports version control. And if I want to use the integration between Zenodo and GitHub, I could have deposited this in my GitHub repository and then take it, harvest it from my Zenodo account and receive DOI number in Zenodo. So it can, because it is integrated, you don't have to do a lot of things with it, just it can do this automatically. So if you have commits on GitHub, it can be retrieved and be deposited there. But the stipulation is to do so, you would have to have open repository. So you cannot use this integration if you want to have closed repository. It's a mandate. So this is how it would work. This is my collection mock collection that I created at our GitHub session. It doesn't contain anything, but I just using it here for practice stuff. And I just have to turn on, as they say, flip the switch. And if I flip the switch, I would I would enable my repository to be seen here. And as you can see, have a DOI number. Sorry, I just now I messed up this slide. So also the last thing that's perhaps not so important for encoded inscriptions and the use in that type of work, but what is very neat, as some other repositories do this as well, and it's very convenient, is that Zenodo is also integrated with OrcID. And what OrcID is, basically it's the DOI for people. So this is the unique identifier that that the researchers can have, and it unites, for example, convenient if someone changes their name, OrcID would be the same, and you, by using this number, you would always know that you refer to the specific person. So this is why using an OrcID in different types of online publishing is very, very useful and can be very neat and can be very interoperable, which is something that we all should strive for, so that we don't have to end up by typing infinitely bibliographic references. So that's it from the presentation. I thought maybe I didn't want to make it too long, so that you can ask questions and comment if you wish. Anyone? Okay. No questions. I'm disappointed.
We are preparing for exercises.
Oh, all right. So you want to move to that step already. Okay, so do you all agree that we should move on to the hands-on part? Okay, so has anyone already installed Zotero in advance by following links provided in your training materials? And I don't expect that number to be less than one, because you had a lot of stuff to install during this week. But if you wish, we can do it together, and I will provide you, perhaps I can share the link in the chat box, and that can lead you to the installation page. Just I beg you to be patient until I can find this in our yes. Okay, it should appear now. So this is the main link to the main Zotero page. And if you do not wish to navigate by yourself, I will provide you. I'm guessing that you didn't create accounts in advance.
I think I did.
I did.
Oh, great. Amazing. So those who created accounts can go straight to logging in. Do you need me to share my screen or?
Yeah, please do, because I'm
Okay.
trying to follow.
Okay,
Yeah.
yes, sure. Just in a second. just let me find download page.
When I opened the link in the training materials, it directly led me to the download page. So
Oh, great,
yeah.
great. So amazing. So what
Yes,
what you want to do is download, because I don't know if you have to select if you're a Mac user or a Windows user to install the right version. And there are two things that you want to install. It's a Zotero connector, which will help you grab references from the internet, and you would want to install standalone application that will allow you to manipulate your data, because you can do a lot of stuff in only by logging into a web page, but you wouldn't be able to export references only by using website. For this, you need a standalone application. That this is the thingy. Yeah. Okay. I hope you're seeing this. Okay, so this is. Were you able to find this?
Yeah, it downloaded. I'm installing it right now.
Okay, great.
I downloaded a zipped file. So what do we do now? We just set the setup. Just click on it and it will run by itself. Yeah.
Yeah, because I have it already installed, so I don't see. But you usually, when you get the zip file, you can just open it, and it probably wouldn't ask you to unzip it, but you can click and the installation would begin probably automatically. Is that happening?
Yeah.
Right now? Great. And perhaps you would, I don't know, what are you using for browsers?
Chrome.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Because on some browsers, it doesn't work perfectly. For example, if you use Opera, connector will make some funny stuff and wouldn't react at some points. And for Chrome, it works really good. So it would be my choice as well. But let me see. Now I can show you here something that I left out of presentation. These are Zotero groups, and these are very useful. They're like communities in different repositories, and you can create a new group, for example, and add or invite people to participate. You can choose several plans, whether if it's public and with open membership. This means that anyone can join, or you want closed membership. This means that only persons you add can use the database. And for example, you can choose who you want your data to be able to alter. For example, in some groups you can make only editors that you choose, alter data, for example, or enter data. Otherwise, you can also have anyone who joins the group add something to it. It really depends on what you want from your project. Also, private membership, this means that it's closed. It's like for something that you don't want other people seeing. And of course, you get a group link, which you can refer to. And these groups have their own libraries, so they can function like a sort of a bibliographic website for a project, which is very neat. How are we going with the installation?
Well, when I click install a Zotero connector, it just for Chrome, it just takes me to that, and that's it. Is there anything?
That's it.
That's it.
So
okay.
that's it. But now we want to also to install a standalone application. Just let me stop sharing for a second to be able to see what I'm sharing, as I think that you're seeing something, but you're actually seeing something else. I just realized that. So are you all seeing the window stating create a new group?
Yes.
Yes, great. So this is what I was talking about just now, and you can create any type of groups, task group, for example. So it's everyone wants to have a collection named test, so this is a name that I cannot use. Okay, great. A collection is born, a group is born. So this is where you choose your settings. If you want it to be private, closed, public. Who do you want your material to be read by? Who can edit the collection? Who can edit files? Because you can add files there as well. But it would probably, at some point, if you add a lot of things, it would make your collection heavy, and then you will probably reach the paid plan very soon. But if you only store metadata and link to an external content, you can do a lot with it with a free plan, which is our goal is to have a free tool. So. Okay, and this is, as I mentioned, documentation. So if there is anything that you did not understand how to do at first, or something that you want to just to check or read, there is really a lot of stuff here that is helpful, really very neat documentation. Okay. Forms, I think we can safely skip forms because we're not that level of users. There are a lot of other features that I skipped. For example, there is an API. There are ways to do some more complex harvesting and stuff like that. But basically, you would want to start with only the basic functionalities of the basic plan. So this is, as I said, this is an online version, which allows you to enter data and to check what is there. You can share it as website as if it is open. Everything is linkable, so you can refer with links to your content. But you cannot export material. This is why we are installing the the software on our machines. For example, I created collections for our project for all the topics here, Zotero as well as Zenodo and GitHub, and I put here some of the references that can be a useful reading material for you after the workshop. And you have also this is linked also in the training materials, but hopefully these are just some basic references, and we can do it together, and we can perhaps at some point expand this reading list. And this is, you see that my collection that I just created, workshop test, has appeared here. So maybe I can later invite you all to become members of this group, and we can put references here, or you just create your local basic collections to try this stuff out. For those who have already installed the connector and they're probably logged in to this web library, you can try to grab a reference and see how it behaves. Elena?
Well, I'm not sure. I got a little bit lost because
Okay.
I'm logged on the internet page, and then I've got on my computer something which says my library, Zotero, and that's it. But I'm not sure I can connect the two things. How can I get to this connector when I'm on the internet, right?
You would probably see it next to the address bar. Do you see it next to the address bar?
Not really. I'm not sure.
It can look like a notebook page, or sometimes a Z.
I'm not sure that I see it.
Are you seeing at the moment my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so this is a properly installed Zotero connector. It should look like this.
No, I don't have that.
No, then perhaps.
Maybe I should go to manage extensions.
Yeah.
Yes.
It
And
sometimes
then
happens, yes. If something is blocked, that it doesn't really appear immediately.
And what should I do?
So can you share your screen?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's I'll stop sharing. So
Just a moment. Okay.
So go up.
I entered here, and
No, it's not installed. So please go to Zotero again. The Zotero connectors to the left.
yeah, I just
to
don't
the
see
left.
now the bar
Oh,
because
Yeah.
I'm sharing.
yeah, I know.
I lost the.
Can you see it now?
I'm trying to make this small so that I can minimize it below this bar of the Zoom, but it doesn't work well.
Just drop it, drag and drop it lower.
Yeah. That's what I'm trying to do, but okay, now I've got it.
Yeah. So go to Zotero.
I just wanted to make it a little bit bigger. Okay, Zotero, yes,
And
this.
scroll down to connectors and go to install, yes.
And this is what I get.
Yeah, and there should be a button saying add to, but you probably don't see it.
I think it's already added.
It's already added, but then
I
she
see.
should see it under extensions. So go to extensions
Click
again.
here, Professor. Click here. It's not.
You can't see it.
Where?
What happens if you click manage extensions?
Yeah, but
I open. I'm okay. Manage extensions. Yes, and
Yeah, we've been there. Okay.
yeah.
But there should be button. There should be a button top. Go back to Zotero, please. And
the connector?
scroll to the right, because if it's installed, there should be a button saying remove. So scroll. You have this bar at the bottom of your window, and you should scroll. No.
Oh, okay.
No vertical. Not yeah, and go up now.
Add to Chrome. Okay.
Yeah. So if it's installed, then this button says remove. Yeah, and add, and now it will appear.
Yeah, I didn't see this button. Okay, I think it
because
should
the
be.
screen was small.
That's it.
Should I turn on synchronization or no?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. That's okay. Now you should see the icon. But you need to enlarge the screen.
Yeah, here it is now.
Perhaps click. You can click on that thingy next to the star in address bar.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, it's
okay.
there.
Here it is.
Just you have to pin it.
You pin it, yes.
To pin it.
Okay.
Yeah, it sometimes automatically pins, and sometimes you need to do it manually.
Okay. Okay.
Oh no, not that bookmarks. So please click on the puzzle. Go back to extensions.
Yeah.
And now you have this pin. Yes, here. That's right.
Okay.
So now you have it.
Great.
Yeah, so I see it now. Yeah. Okay.
It will turn when you have a grabbable material and your standalone application is on. You'll see that it turns red. This means that he can collect something. So how are the other ones? How is everything going? Have you installed the connector already?
Yeah, everything looks great, but like the download broke my connection within the Zoom meeting, so I probably missed some things, but I think so far I see the extension, I have the library, and that's it. And you should tell me what to do next.
Okay, so now the second download needs to be for a collection. I don't know, it automatically leads you. I think it recognizes the system that you're using, and when you go to downloads, it redirects you to the version for Windows probably and the version for Mac. But there are also links, so yeah. So when you go to downloads, you can find any system, either iOS or Linux, Windows, and stuff like that, and just download the proper installation that you need and just run it. It installs really quickly.
Ask something now. When I turn on the connector, everything changed on my on the browser. I mean,
no, it probably changed because you synced. If you don't regularly use if you do not sync your Google profile with the Chrome, it behaves like a generic. But when you connect those two, it has a customized look. This is why everything turned blue for you.
And I lost on all my bookmarks. I mean, they're not visible. They are there, but they're not visible.
Yeah, you can probably retrieve that.
Yeah.
It just syncs with your Google profile. You don't have to, if you don't feel like it, you can kill this syncing connection and just have a regular sign in into your Gmail. It's not mandatory, as I know that you have this syncing, but it can be neat for some things. So, okay, does anyone have a program prepared?
What means prepared?
I mean, downloaded, installed, and ready to use.
I think so, yeah. And I've just joined the Prometheus group.
Oh, great. Great.
There was an invitation. Yeah.
Great. Okay, so if Elena has prepared, do you want perhaps to share your screen and just let's try to grab something together and manipulate it? Are you up for it?
Yeah, if you need me to, but my internet is super unstable and keeps throwing me from the Zoom.
Okay. Okay, so maybe I can find something. I'm really just I have to move this stuff around because I don't see anything from from Zoom windows. So I'm just clicking around the screen. Let me find something. And never mind, I can import something to a different collection just to show you one more time how things function. So for example, I will pretend that I did not click on this from my Zoom library, from my Zotero library, but found this reference online, for example, that I need for a specific reason. And if I want to import it in one of my collections, first of all, I need to have everything up and running and making sure that I'm logged in, which at this point I'm not sure because I'm okay. So got it. I just grabbed it. I selected the collection that I wanted to automatically go in. And when I...
Excuse me, we are not seeing that.
Oh, you're not seeing. I'm sorry. What? I have to stop sharing and return because I don't see. Okay, great. It doesn't switch what I share. Excuse me. So I will just do this one more time. So I found this reference on the internet and I need it. I want it imported. And so I click. Are you seeing this now?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Great. So I'm clicking on my Zotero connector. It shows me this little window, which allows me to choose what collection I wanted to go in. And I say, okay, references, for example, because that's where I wanted to go. And then now I need to switch. I'm sorry for this inexperienced in switching the windows that I'm sharing. And I want to go to. So it appeared. Are you seeing my Zotero now? It
Yes.
appeared here. Yes, it appeared here. And because the text is in open access, it was able to grab the PDF that was attached to it. It is sometimes it can be useful, but as I say, if you collect a lot of PDFs, it would make your collection too heavy. At some point, you would have to remove some stuff or pay for. But there is, I think there is a lot of space that you can use on a free plan, so don't be afraid. So here, this is because I clicked on the full text, it shows some of PDF's metadata here. But if I click on reference itself, it shows a full set of metadata, including so not only authors, abstract, publication name, issue date, and stuff like that. Because it is well formed, it shows under which license the work is published. So you can see it here. It's under Creative Commons, no derivatives license. So are there any questions about this? Which I think it's pretty straightforward. It's not a.
Yeah, I think it's clear.
Yeah, it's very clear, but it's as you can see, this saved you from typing in the title, the authors. So you just found it, clicked it, grabbed it. Okay, and now you can manipulate your metadata. For example, if you need this reference in some other collection, or need it replicated or triplicated, or you need it for anything else, you can just drag it and drop it somewhere else, and it will go there. I'll, for example, put it here, and it will appear here. So here it is. So it's easy as that. It's very user-friendly. It's easy to manipulate. So you can also, what you can do here, you can make notes, because sometimes it can be useful for you, for any type of work that you do, to note something about a specific reference. And also here you can add links. It can, I cannot come up with enough examples what you can do here, because it's unlimited. It depends on your ideas. Also tags, you see that he automatically grabbed keywords as tags. So this can be also used in some other way if you need it. If you don't need those keywords that go with the article, you can create your own tag set within your collection. This is I don't want to go there. So the final thing that we can do here is learn how to export this to be usable in some other format. And to do that, you just right click on the selected document, and you can do this for the whole collection. For example, if you want 100, if you have collection of hundreds of reference and you need bibliography from them, you can generate bibliography automatically. You can also select the citation style that you want it exported in. For example, I don't know, Chicago citation style and others. Or you can export a specific reference as a file, as an item that can be further either used, reused, or imported into another system. Now I will only export it to TI because that's something that we can use here, and you can try this stuff out yourself. For example, for those inscriptions that you encoded, you can find bibliographic enter or catch them with connector, bibliographic references that refer to your inscription, and then you can try to export it in TI and see the results, tweak it if you need it, and put it in your bibliography authority file and make reference to it in your EPIDOC edition. Okay. So I will name it test just to be able to find it in my downloads. So here it is, and I'm sorry, Zoom new share, and new share is going to be my oxygen. Okay, are you seeing my oxygen window?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. So here it is. It exported my reference. I'll just quickly try to make this fit. Hopefully I won't mess something up. That wouldn't be good. Okay. For example, are you already recognizing some of the tags that Alina showed you yesterday?
We are not seeing that.
We see now just frozen oxygen.
Oh, oops.
It's loading, opening.
Okay. So this must be something. I will just let me type this, and I will stop sharing and resume sharing. I don't know why Zoom did this to me. Okay, are you seeing now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So you see, he automatically transported the data from specific metadata fields and it enclosed it within TI tags, and you can put this in your file. And I'm not sure, I would need Alina and Mitko's assistance here in how to visualize. I would know how to show you how to visualize this in FS, but I think there is certainly a way to visualize this in IX as well. So when you edit an inscription, you can have an authority list with bibliography and refer to it within your separate EPIDOC files.
Tried something.
Okay, great. Would
But
you
I
like to
didn't-
share screen?
Yes.
Great, I'll stop sharing then. Just, sorry, let me, okay. Go ahead, Philip.
Well, I have problem with this. 1 second. From here, I saved this reference, exported. How should I export?
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay.
That's okay. Okay.
Yeah, you wanted to have an ID, so okay.
Yes, just 1 second. I got this. I succeed. I think. You see the oxygen?
Yeah.
Yeah. At first, yes, I just got the brief version, but now it's okay.
Yes. And also, it would probably, and everyone can do this by themselves, try to add more metadata and see what's exported as a result. For example, if you, I don't know, if you, the richer data you put in, the richer output you get, which is normal and expected. And so it depends on what you need and how you, it also depends on how you will, if you want to tweak this code, it depends on your project and on scenario that is created for transformation. So you would need to see it visualized to see if tweaking is needed for this code, for example, or you can set the transformation scenario in your XSLTs. So it depends on it, but you don't have to. You just have to move stuff around. You don't have to encode manually source description and forename and surname and stuff like that. You already get a code, and even if it doesn't fit your visualization, you can tweak it either by altering by moving stuff around in the code or moving stuff around in XSLT.
Automatization.
So, yes, basically that's it. And we are reaching the 1 o'clock, which is our cue to perhaps leave all the participants to get some rest before this afternoon's session. So does anyone have anything to add or ask before we go to a short break?
I just wanted to say that it's a great tool. I mean, I managed to put a reference in a Word file, then I see that it's very easily manageable. So, and also if it is, I grabbed a PDF that already exists somewhere, so you can open it from as a folder or from if it is a journal. So it is really great. Yeah.
Yeah, it can do a lot of other stuff. I didn't show this because it can be a workshop on its own, because there is really, it's very versatile. But this is one way to shorten the steps to encode, because if you have, for example, it's okay to type in if you have 10 inscriptions, but if you have hundreds, it's really tedious to type this code for every single feature. So you save your energy for inscriptions, for stuff that you need to be creative about. There's nothing to be creative about. This is the title level J, so it can be generated.
It's
Okay.
great. Yes, I agree. Thank you very much.
And thank you all, and thank you, Milica.
It's been my pleasure.
Thank you once again, everybody.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll see each other in an hour. There is, in the document, I will leave the final session as a Zoom meeting link, If you think I should repeat an email, because last night I sent an email with Zoom IDs and meetings. If you think I should repeat for afternoon session or not.
I don't believe there's need.
Okay, great. So we'll see each other in an hour when we will have presentations of our projects. And afterwards, another lively session about visualization, and close with the discussion.
Okay.
Okay, see you.
Bye bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.